So, you guys all know who I am. So I'm going to introduce myself anyway because I like talking about me. So my name is Brian Kelly, and I am founder and CEO of Kelly Design and Development, where we're focused on making the world a better place through technology. Our topic of conversation today is mental health as an entrepreneur. And join me on this expedition are some truly incredible people, and Steve. And I will be going around to ask everyone to introduce themselves and to talk a little bit about your business. So we'll start with TJ over here, and we'll kind of work our way around. So TJ, if you would just introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your business, and then we'll jump over.
Cool. So my name is TJ Hulse. I started a business 2 years ago, storage units. So I came back to my hometown and bought a building that was kind of in disrepair and needed some new life. So I went through and opened up all the walls, turned it into storage units, and rent to local business owners and people in the community where I grew up.
Sweet. One more time, what was the name and how long have you been?
Yeah, it's Wolfpack Storage, and just over 2 years in business.
Awesome. Brittany?
So I'm Brittany Thierman. I'm the CEO of Neighborhood School of Dance, and we have two locations, one in Olean and one in Port Allegheny, Pennsylvania. This is my 10th season owning the studio, which is insane. And ironically, our recital theme this year is Dancing Through the Decades, so that worked out well. And I also am an adjunct professor at Alfred State, teaching business, and then I'm also going to Marshall University for my doctorate of business administration, so I don't know how to sit still.
Fair enough. Steve?
My name's Stephen Capitani. I just maybe like last week, I filed my doing business as license for Horn Again Instrument Repair. Give your instrument a new lease on life. I lost my job at Boundless Connections about the end of last October, and at about the same time, a local repairman who'd been doing the work for a number of years in the local community was trying to move his equipment. He was like 95. He was in a nursing home. They were trying to sell his house, so they had to get rid of it. So I was able to buy a lot of equipment for not a lot of money, and it was kind of like the perfect time for me to say, let's just give it a shot and see how it works out. So I'm literally just getting started, and that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. And Kryn?
Hi, I'm Dr. Kryn McClain. I'm the co-owner and co-founder of Paragon Behavioral Health. We have 3 locations across 2 states, one in Olean, New York, one in Reading, Pennsylvania, and one in Lancaster, or I guess Ephrata, Pennsylvania. And we've been in business for 5 years now.
Awesome. So we can see that there's a lot of experience across the board there. I didn't express that I've only been around for a year and a half, just about as much as TJ. So we have a good diversity in terms of like how long people have been in business. So I wanted to, and I'll go in the opposite order this time, but now I want everyone to discuss a little bit about what mental health has been to them as an entrepreneur. And I'll start with you, Dr. McClain.
Sure. How deep do we want to go?
As deep as you want to go.
Yeah, we have the extra challenge that we are a mental health company, and not only do we, monitor the business needs and the challenges in navigating those nuances, but we also have the experience of navigating the mental health in the crises that we've come across, not only in our employees, but our clients through, our time in business together. So it's certainly a challenge, and I'm not sure how specific you want me to get, or how. We've seen it all. We've had everything from, some very traumatic stories to everyday stories. So we've done our best to help support our employees, our clients, and really be that bridge in helping improve the quality of life and walking through that path together.
And for you as an individual and as a business owner, what does it mean?
What does mental health mean to us?
To you in specific, because you've had a number of years managing a business, and that can come with its own level of stresses. So what is mental health for and to you?
It's just part of our everyday well-being. To me, it's just as important as my physical health, and making sure that I'm mentally well as physically well. So it goes hand in hand for me, and being very aware that, if something is happening to a person, and taking a more holistic approach and not just thinking, okay, they're slacking off or they're not up to par, we think, oh, wow, something's not right. Wonder if they're going through something, or I wonder if something's happened where we need to sit down and make sure everything is okay before we, put in some sort of measures that would, improve performance. So for me, it's really taking that holistic look at a person, and not just the physical health, but also the mental as well.
Great, thank you. And Steve?
You want to repeat the question for me just so that I...
Yeah. So as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and you're certainly the newest to our club here, what does mental health mean to you? And that is a very intentionally vague question.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I guess the first thing I should say is shout out Paragon, because without their services, I would probably be in a ditch somewhere. I would say that, I have to look at this mental health question a little bit differently than most people. Being somebody with a physical disability, one of the things that I struggle with a lot is lacking energy, lacking motivation, lacking just feeling good in any sense, mentally, physically. It all is tied together. So, for me, a lot of starting my own business was because of that. Okay, hey, I kind of got the chance to call my own shots, to make my own schedule, to work in a way that honors what I need personally, because the whole 9-to-5 stuff, I can do it, but it's a lot more difficult because it doesn't take into account my specific needs, which can vary wildly day by day, because that's just the way, I didn't say it, type 1 diabetes is the disability I have. Every day is just going to be a little bit different, and I can't possibly predict that. So a big part of this journey for me is stepping into that piece of, okay, I have my own ability to dictate when I do work, because I can do that. So just kind of reorienting my mind to not view taking the time off that I need as I'm doing this is a bad thing, because I'm doing this so I can set my own schedule, so I can take my own needs into account. So kind of trying to get away from feeling guilt, shame, impatience, like I'm not moving anywhere, and trying to reorient it to all of this downtime is important, because then I'll have the energy to do what I actually want to and need to do as I'm moving forward. So just trying to kind of reorient my own brain in a sense of, yeah, I can kind of call my own shots now, so I can reframe the way I'm looking at everything. And that takes a bit. It takes a lot of time to make that shift. So I guess that's all I'm going to say for now.
Indeed, it does. No, I think you hit a lot of nails very well. Thank you. Brittany?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So what is mental health to you as an entrepreneur?
So I would say, none of us wanted to go through COVID, but we learned a lot from it. And as a business owner, absolutely the scariest time of my life. 100%. Like, are we going to make it? How are we going to make it? I remember being on the phone with Mrs. Marks and being like, you know what? There were dance studios before the Holocaust, and there were dance studios after the Holocaust, so we're going to make it. We're going to find a way. But what I learned from that was, you have to step away. You have to have time for yourself, and it is part of the process. And being a dance teacher and being creative all the time, like, you cannot be creative all the time. Like, you have to have times where I'm not choreographing dances and not coming up with combos, because you have to have that downtime to let your brain kind of just rest. And so the year that we had our outdoor recital at Bradner Stadium, I told everybody, I'm taking the month of June off. I'm not doing anything. I'm doing absolutely nothing with the studio. Like, someone else is going to answer the phone. I need a break. And I am so glad I did that, because now I do it every year, because I found so much value in just pressing the reset button for a little bit, or a lot of it, because it was a whole month. And I think it's really easy as a business owner to go down the rabbit hole of wanting to be accessible to people all the time because, every person who texts us or signs up online, we feel like we need to reach out to them immediately, and because it could be a potential customer who's going to become a paying client, and just understanding that like you have to set boundaries as a business owner. That's a really big thing that I've learned over my years, I guess. So
I think that's a great lesson to learn. Some of us are definitely still working on it.
yeah,
they are, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw you staring me down out of the corner of my eye. TJ.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I think it's a constant moving target with mental health and entrepreneurship. Huge. So definitely shout out to Kryn because she helped me through a lot of just the mental anguish that goes into getting a business started and trying to make it perfect, not having perfect be the enemy of good, right? Continually moving forward. She helped me through, she was my mentor in the accelerator that I was in with Brittany, so that was huge. Scheduling for me is really big, trying to keep everything lined up because like Brittany, I like to stay super busy. And I've found over these last couple of years, if I'm not busy enough, then I can start to get almost lackadaisical or lose my focus. So I need to fill my schedule with things that are going to energize me, want to make me go to work every day for myself and continue to improve. So things like this is something new that I've always wanted to get into. We've talked about it quite a bit. A lot of new connections come with entrepreneurship because every business is a little bit different, but there's a lot of similarities with every business as well. So from just kind of reaching out and being able to talk with different business owners on different parts of their business that they struggle with or that they excel in, I think you can learn. You can learn a lot, so you're constantly learning. My parents owned a business growing up, so I got to see some of their craziness. I watched them take the business from the phone ringing off the hook in the house to buying a separate property that was only a couple hundred yards away from the house, but they separated as much as they could the work-life balance, and that was super important for me to kind of see them be able to develop. And I was grabbing a coffee out the door today, and I went to go see my dad, and I was like, hey, I got this podcast coming up, and he was like, what's it on? I said, mental health and entrepreneurship. What do you think about that? And he's retired now, helps me quite a bit with the storage in my business. But he just looked at me and he said, well, I think you got to be crazy to start your own business. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something to be said about that. And you're taking on a lot. And I think to kind of settle some of that craziness, being in tune with your own mind and what you can handle at that point, like knowing, like I need a month off. And you say that's a lot of time, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think a month is a lot of time because, your typical work week might be 40 hours for a 9 to 5, like you were saying, Steve. Entrepreneurship, it doesn't shut off. So you're not working 9 to 5. You're not working 40-hour weeks. You're working 80-hour weeks, 100-hour weeks. You're going to bed at night and you're running through dance routines in your head. Yeah. So you've worked twice as much or 3 times as much as the average person. So for you to take 30 days off and self-reflect and be like, wow, that was a lot, you need that. And you need to be able to look back and say, wow, this past year went really well. I need this month for myself, and I think you earn that and you deserve that. So.
Thank you for that validation.
Yeah, seriously. Like sometimes people need to recognize and realize like there's a reason even a 9 to 5 job you get a couple weeks paid time off, right? You're supposed to take that. You need that for yourself. So yeah.
I think that's great. I'm working with a number of interns right now, and one of them wanted to start a business, which is why I invited him on, because I wanted to give him that experience of working with someone who's starting up a business. And as we reached the end of that experience, I was asking him about it. He's like, you got to be crazy to want to do this. Like, I will not do this unless I have 1 or 2 other people to do it with me. And I'm like, yeah, I can understand that. For my own personal story, and then we'll kind of not worry about going individually anymore, because then everyone would have had a chance to say something. For my individual story, I think my story from the beginning has been in mental health. It has been focused in mental health. I always say it's Kelly Design Development, here to make the world a better place through technology. And I came to that conclusion because I started off in a very dark place myself, circa 2019. It had only been a couple years since a couple suicides of people who were very close to me, and I found myself falling into that similar level of darkness, we'll say, for that's all I need to say. So in that similar level of darkness, and there was a point where I felt that I was at that mental, emotional rock bottom. And for anyone who's heard me talk about the story of how my business came to be, I ended up calling a suicide hotline, and they were very bad at what they did, to the point where I started laughing. But that laughter, it was the tiniest spark in the greatest of darknesses. And it made me laugh and continue laughing, and just made me reflect as I started saying, maybe everything isn't that bad, because I'm in some pretty dark places right now, and I find laughter still. And that's when I started adopting a bit more of that absurdism philosophy, the myth of Sisyphus and all that jazz, which I won't go into too much here, because I'll talk the whole hour if that happens. And it was at that point in my life where I realized I needed something else to do. I needed something to put my focus into. And I always saw my personal mission as making the world a better place through technology. So that's what I went into. And for me, it happened to turn into what I do now, which is digital marketing. Can I see the business pivoting into the future to something completely different? Oh, yeah, of course. And I can't wait to see what comes of that. However, much as I was talking about Steve picking on me over here, there's a lot of lessons that I have yet to learn on good mental health in business management. We're definitely learning those lessons. I was joking with Noah this morning, because my day yesterday ended at 1 a.m. because we had a server malfunction and a bunch of websites went down. And I was like, oh no. And I wanted those websites up because I have clients that are meaningful to me, and I don't want their websites to be down. So I'm like, okay, let's do what we can. And then everything started working again at 1 in the morning. And I'm like, fantastic. I didn't get anything that I needed to get done today. So then my next day started at 4 a.m. because I needed to get that stuff done in a timely manner. And sometimes that's just what being an entrepreneur is. Do I recommend doing that a lot? No. Because that will not lead to any good direction. But it's like boundary setting. It's something that I know I need to work on still. And I'm definitely reading a great book right now called Don't Sweat the Small Things and All Things Are Small Things, which is a really neat book if anyone's ever read it. And it's giving me a little bit more time to reflect and say, maybe this thing that feels like it's a fire that needs to be put out doesn't necessarily need to be put out right now. And despite the fact that I'm working on 3 hours of sleep, I feel pretty good, all things considered, because
you don't.
I'm just tired. That's it.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty good because there are some other projects that I had in the works that needed to be done today or tomorrow, and just reached out to those specific people. I'm just like, look, there's some things going on right now. I need to reschedule. And it's always surprising how amiable people are, and how much like, yeah, no, okay, I get it. And just
it's almost like
move on.
People will be understanding.
Yeah. Which is hard
to keep in mind, because oftentimes we predict the worst possible outcome. Oh, they're going to be so angry, they're going to be pissed, they're going to hate me, they're going to drop me. And that's maybe not always the case. In fact, I think that's rarely the case.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
But also, if those people are angry or pissed,
they're not worth it.
Exactly. Do you want them in your circle? Do you want them to be something that's sucking your energy? So it's a lesson to learn too.
Keep your money, go somewhere else, because I don't want to deal with it.
Yep.
And you get the choice kind of to do that when you're doing your own thing.
Yeah. I think transparency is huge, right? Like, you reached right out to them. That was something that Kryn and I worked on. Is I was like, with my industry, I have ebbs and flows where I'm really busy. Like right now, it's one of my busiest times because I have some people moving in and out, spring cleaning, storage units. Like, you wouldn't think that gets busy, but it does. And I can't have 5 people trying to move storage units and have trucks in and out of how my facility's set up at one time. So I have to like coordinate for them, right? So sometimes it's like, hey, I know you really want to move stuff in this weekend, but I've got 3 people come in on these times. Is there any chance you could bump it? And they respect that, because you want to know, they don't want to come with their truck loaded up with their stuff and not be able to get in. So I think the transparency and just being super open, Kryn helped me a lot with, you know, when I am on my downtimes, there's a time suck where people are like, oh, well, TJ's not doing anything, so, you know, maybe he can come help me with this, or he can come do this. And personal and professional, like you get sucked into that time warp. So I've been really focusing on this past like 6 months, putting my schedule out there to people like, hey, I'm busy at these times. If you need me, you can get a hold of me now. And they respect that. So I think that helps with the mental clarity too for yourself, because you feel like you want to help everybody, right? Like you want to help the world through technology. You want to help as many people as you can, right? But you have to help yourself, and you have to be scheduled and structured. And I think that plays into it huge, just letting people know what you're doing and when you're doing it.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah. Very accurate.
Yeah. Maybe you should listen to that, because it's not coming from me for once.
Yes, it is very true. I was actually very excited because this past weekend I was a panelist at Ithacon. So
That's cool.
I mean, that was really cool, just to go to a comic convention and be a panelist. That was really cool. It was so nerdy. It was great. And it was really awesome to take a step away. I mean, it wasn't as long as a vacation as I might have liked, which is like closer to that month, but it is what I could afford, and that's what I could do. And it was fun to just take a step away. I could do without the allergies, but otherwise it was.
What was that for exactly?
So Ithacon is a comic book convention held in Ithaca. It's like, you can think of Comic-Con light.
Oh, I know.
TJ knows
Comic-Cons.
all about this.
I was gonna say, I thought you go to cons all the time.
I've done probably like 50 of them myself, so it's wild.
No way. I mean, we're in pretty well with the people who run it now, so we'll have to talk and see what we can do.
So you were a panelist?
Yeah.
What is that? So you're like judging, or what? Like what is
Yes.
that? What does that mean?
I sit up front and I judge everyone from my pedestal.
How nerdy are you? Like 1 through 10? Like you give it to them?
I'm pretty nerdy, but like, I'm your generalist level nerd.
Oh yeah.
Whereas you want Digimon, you go to that guy.
You run a D&D campaign.
I do run a D&D campaign. I run multiple D&D campaigns. Kryn, I'm going to let you talk on this one because you're pretty nerdy too.
Stop it.
You can't just out people like that.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah. No, I've run Dungeons and Dragons campaigns for autistic kids, and it's a phenomenal experience. It's my favorite thing ever, and that's one part of the clinical aspect that I do miss if we're talking about, you know, scheduling and boundaries and things like that. So I don't practice anymore, but, you know, running those campaigns and, you know, intertwining evidence-based treatment into something that I love was, you know, extremely rewarding and beneficial for them.
That's so cool. It's so cool that you got the opportunity to do that. Were you the one who started that program? And where did that idea come from?
Yeah, I did start that. And I don't remember if it was my idea or if someone was like, hey, why don't you just do that in therapy? And so I think I ran it for 2 or 3 summers, but once the pandemic hit, it didn't transpose well online. It was a little bit more difficult to work on some of those skills through the computer. But yeah, it was just something that it's difficult to replicate because other people have asked me, hey, how do you do that? And you really got to know both. You have to know the evidence-based treatment. You have to have a goal for each session. And you also have to understand Dungeons and Dragons, which a lot of people do, to the level that you can intertwine evidence-based treatment into, you know, your story and your modules. And I was able to write several campaigns to do that. So yeah, I'd love to bring that back somehow. And I don't know, Brian, maybe we can talk about that later about how we can.
That sounds really cool. I was just thinking I would buy those books.
Yeah.
Therapeutic approach. Yeah, exactly. That's not a bad idea. Maybe that's my 3rd business. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I think using gamification and the interests of various individuals are not used nearly as much as they could be to help benefit society as a whole. There's a lot more rigidity and structure to a lot of what we do.
Yeah, I think you got to do it right too. So it's
Yeah.
not just a tech person being like, ooh, I'm going to make a lot of money and fill this hole in healthcare that I see. It really has to come from an authentic place where we, as healthcare providers, see the holes and can use technology for the betterment of humanity and not the other way around. I don't think that doesn't sit well with me. So I think if we can come together with our healthcare practitioners and our technology people and find some innovative solutions, we can really gain some traction and make some really tangible and scalable and meaningful change.
So I'm going to start once more with you, Dr. McClain. I'm sorry, I'm calling you both. Did you have a preference as to one or the other?
Oh, like Dr. Kryn or Dr. McClain?
Yeah. Oh, I've called you Kryn at least a number of times, and I'm trying to be as professional as possible.
Yeah, understood.
Okay.
Understood.
So, as you have experienced the business world longer than the rest of us, I want to ask you, have you ever experienced burnout? And if you did, how did you recognize it and how did you address it?
Yeah, this is actually something I talked about with my business coach right before we got on the podcast, where I think as a business owner, it's more of a pendulum, right? We've all taken this risk and now people depend on us. We don't have the opportunity to burn out. We have to persevere. So I view it more as a pendulum, and sometimes it swings one way where things are great. We have an awesome team and everything is jiving and we're all synergized. And it does swing the other way where we have to maybe realign and pivot, or maybe debrief on something that didn't go well and figure out how we can do things better. So as business owners, I don't think we have the opportunity to burn out. And if we are, then, too many people, at least in my opinion, too many people depend on me to make sure that the ship keeps running. And if I fizzle out, then I've let all of them down. So it is on us to recognize those early signs of burnout, maybe not caring as much, or, not feeling energized, or not giving it our all or our best, or feeling those symptoms. We have to be able to combat that by talking about it with business coaches or mentors or other business owners such as yourself. So it's great to have such a network of other business owners, because chances are we've gone through some of those similar challenges, and no matter what industry you're in, we're all navigating the same thing, and that's people. And if we can work together to come up with better people solutions that enhances the workplace, then I think we're going to be able to combat those feelings of burnout or depression or whatever we may be feeling as a business owner.
Oh yeah, I'll run off that because of my own learning lessons that I've certainly been reaching out a lot more. I mean, I've taken Steve on as a contractual executive assistant, and I've been dishing a bunch of small but meaningful jobs onto him, and he's been fantastic help, and I appreciate that,
Great.
Steve. And I'll pass it around to like a general room, but I'm sure other people have experienced the same thing, and I, especially Brittany.
Do you think I've experienced burnout?
Yeah, not at all. Never.
I would say the answer is yes. And I think the thing you have to think about is you really have to be self-aware of like how you're feeling on things, and you can't just like shove it down and say, oh, I'll deal with that later. Like if you really have to kind of feel through your feelings. At least that's what works for me. And just being really aware of like what's good for you and what's bad for you. And so, yeah, before, I was, cleaning the studios and teaching 5 nights a week and doing my books and doing everything for the business and running it by myself. And now I have help and I have other people doing those things for me, and I get to do the things that I love and the tasks that I truly enjoy. And so now, because that's my focus, I don't experience it as much. And there was a time in my past 10 years where there was an event of people that were in the studio and they had a lot of negative energy, and I felt burnout then more than any other time. And I think, the people that you surround yourself with can like either be a really good support system or a system that furthers your burnout. And I think there was a lot of reflection happening, and I'm really glad that I got over all of that, and I'm still owning the business. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry you had to experience that, and I'm glad you were able to learn from it.
Yeah. It was a
I'm
really
not.
good lesson.
I'm glad that you were able to experience it because it was the only way you were going to learn it.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. It was like the biggest blessing. Obviously, it was really tough living
sucks
in it.
in the moment,
having
right?
all those heart palpitations in the moment, it sucks. But now I am so thankful, so fortunate,
You're aware of that boundary
Yes.
that you need to set.
yes, absolutely.
You wouldn't have learned that if you hadn't had that experience. So,
Exactly.
it all pays.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, Brittany. Really, just having those people in your corner that are going to support you and also have a similar philosophy that you do is just so important, because in those moments when that pendulum is swinging where things are not good, man, that's tough to navigate alone, and especially if you don't have that support system.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's huge.
And speaking of support systems, what does everyone use? Not necessarily as in terms of people's support system, but what do you use to improve your mental health when you're feeling low?
Well, I got to walk it back first and talk about burnout because
Okay,
I've got
yeah.
a little bit different of a perspective on that.
Yeah,
simply
please,
because
please.
of my, when I think about burnout in myself, I don't, I'm the skid mark on the road that's left behind. I live in burnout. I am perpetually burnt out. That is the nature of my existence. So, one of the biggest hurdles that I've come upon is starting my business. The moment that I said, I'm thinking about doing this, I got a workshop set up, I've got more business than I can shake a stick at. I'm drowning in it. So it's been really difficult for me to try and figure out, okay, I feel burnt out all the time, and it's really just because of the fact that I have a physical limitation that affects me in that way. So the hardest part for me with burnout has been, just trying to get my head around the fact that, yes, I have to work at a different pace than I would like to. I have to be cognizant all the time of, I'm pretty burnt out. I'm feeling strung along. How do I do the work that I need to do in a way that's meaningful for myself, for the people that I'm working for the instruments that I'm repairing? Still figuring it out. It's tough. It's not easy. I have peace knowing that I'm getting started and that as I move forward, I'll figure it out because I'm starting at literally zero for everything. I've got nothing as far as owning a business. I've got nothing as far as knowing how to repair instruments. It was literally, I picked up the equipment because it was cheap and it was something that I was always interested in. So it's really just kind of like giving myself the time and the space to recognize, it doesn't have to be all done right now. I've got time to learn. I've got time to grow. I've got time to figure myself out because figuring out my own struggles is just as important to my business being successful as learning how to do the work that needs to be done.
Amen to that.
Yeah, that's huge.
To move on to that next piece, I couldn't do what I'm doing without the support network that I have, and I think about my parents and my family who are immensely supportive, who have always been immensely supportive. I don't know how many times in my life I've fucked up absolutely magnificently, and they've always had my back, and they've always said, you'll figure it out. And finally, I feel like, I'm 30 and I'm starting to figure it out. So thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad, for sticking with me. My friends, especially particularly Brian and Noah, who, I've known not for a super long time, but for long enough to know that they're good people who will keep me in the right frame of mind and keep me on the right track, who will support me and motivate me and help me, kind of make those changes that I need to make mentally, because they're in that same boat. They know what it's like. I'm thankful for the people in the band that I joined. I joined a band maybe about the same time that all of this business stuff was happening. And so I'm eternally grateful for them for giving me the outlet of, just having a place where I can have fun, where I can connect with something that's important to me, where I can play music because it's something that brings me a lot of joy and a lot of purpose and a lot of passion in life. So, I think that when we talk about support networks, it's the people we have in our lives. It's the things that we have that we enjoy, that we can come back to, that we know we can come back to. And it's also recognizing the good qualities in ourselves that we have that can carry us through this journey. So, I'm just at the, I'm still learning how to crawl, But, I feel like because of the support that I have, I'll figure it out at some point, and I have confidence that I will. So, not getting so hung up on the timetables, not getting so hung up on, I've got a million things and I don't know how to parse them out. I don't know how to approach them. It's kind of like it'll all shake out as long as you keep moving forward and going. Well, I'm going to keep going and see how far it's going to go. Will I be successful? I've got no clue. But I don't got anything else going on, so what the fuck? Send it.
I think that's good. I think something that people need to do more that helps with all of that is to zoom out, like as a business owner, no matter what point of the process that you're in. My favorite like subject in college was macroeconomics, which is everybody thinks it's super boring, and it is kind of boring, but it's broad perspectives, right? So you zoom out at any point. I think people should do this at least once a week, maybe once a day, honestly, but once a week at least, and think to yourself like where you're at in your business, whether you're overwhelmed or not, but like all the good things that you have at that moment and like where you came from. So there's always different obstacles as you continue to grow through business. Like they change. Everything's always changing. Talking to people who are in business is great, but talking with people who may not be in business is also great because they have that 40,000 foot view. Like, I don't even know how you're doing what you're doing already, but have you ever thought about this? And you just zoom out and you're like, whoa, this is somebody from the outside looking in. No, I never did think of it because I'm right in the middle of it. Like I'm right in the middle of it.
Get the blinders on and it's really hard to see.
Yeah, so I think for you, Steve, like something, definitely give yourself a little credit to the point that you're at now, right? Like you started a business. You've went further along the journey than most people ever will. And you need to pat yourself on the back a little bit for that, right? Like, yeah, you are burned out, but other people working a 9 to 5 are burned out too. Don't think they're not.
Yeah, and if I was working a 9 to 5, I'd be just as burnt out.
Yeah,
it's just this.
Maybe more, right?
Probably
you get into something
Pick your
that
poison.
you get into something that you don't enjoy. And
that's
no fun for anyone.
At least here I have the potential to do, whatever I want. I love music, so, at
Probably
some
gives
point,
you more purpose.
Well, in high school, I always wanted to be a luthier. I wanted to make stringed instruments. And, there's nothing saying that at some point down the road when I've got this a little more established, I can't branch off and try and learn some new stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, part of this process is that, there's possibilities that I get to decide. And as somebody who's, maybe doesn't like making decisions, it's really like, it's been really difficult to flip that switch of, oh, hey, I'm running my own business. I'm always on. I need to always be on. I also know that part is the part that I so desperately need in my life and my, just kind of in my mental health kind of realm. I need to get more into that mindset of, I'm struggling and I can still do. Yeah, I'm dealing with all of this shit that is outside of my control and I can still do these things that I want to, need to, I'm able to do. So, it's definitely taken a lot of reconnoitering of, my mental faculties, and I'm still right in the middle of doing it. And it's just, I think that's what it takes, is you really have to change your mindset in order to own a business. Cause you got to be crazy to do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, all the stuff you say speaks so true, and that's why I really wanted to have you on, because I know a lot of you haven't met Steve, but he's one of the most insightful people I've ever met, and I just really appreciate that you were able to come out.
I'm really controlling myself right now, Brian.
Yeah, I know, and this guy loves cursing as he's talking, and he's been very good.
So do I. So you're in good company.
Yeah.
That's your release.
Yeah.
Another
Put it out there into the world.
Another support I need to shout out is my therapist, because good God, I wouldn't be where I'm at if I didn't have somebody that I could talk to every couple weeks,
right?
And
just get it out there,
cathartically bitch.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's not anything about, oh, well, you know, let's try this, let's think about this. Sometimes if it's just like, I just got to get all this stuff out, man, what a difference that can make.
How many of us work with a therapist on a regular basis?
Well, I mean, I've thought about like, yeah, maybe I need to talk to somebody sometime. But
Yes.
like,
Yes.
I think about that for sure. But I know myself pretty well. I feel that I do. I've learned a lot about myself the past 2 years with some of that empty headspace, or like, there's a lot of work that I do that is like, my dad calls it shut your brain off and just work, like mopping the storage. Like somebody has to keep that place clean, and like, I'm not hiring somebody to go do that. So when I'm like mopping the storage I have a lot of like self-reflection, right?
It's meditative.
How do I feel right now, right? Like, so I'm kind of doing that to myself. But when I went through the accelerator and had all the business support around me, that was huge. Kryn was huge. She looked at me the one time, and it was a shorter session that we had. And she goes, you know, you have so many things going through your mind all the time. And I think that whatever you want to focus on and do, you can be really good at it, but start writing stuff down. Like, get it out of your brain and just write it down. Put it on a sticky note, put it on a tablet, whatever it might be. And then you can always come back to it. But writing it down is going to at least get it out of your brain. And I can't express how much something so simple like that has helped. I went and I bought like a couple whiteboards, and I just write stuff on the whiteboards, right? Like my calendars. The one time I looked, and I had 5 calendars, one on my desk, one on the wall, one on the other wall, a whiteboard, erasable one, and then a little planner. I'm like, I have schedules everywhere, one on my phone. But just writing stuff down and getting it out of my head and letting somebody know, even if it's just the pen and paper, like it helps a lot, helps clear everything.
Yeah, I mean, going to your office that one time, and we were talking about it a little bit. We're like, oh yeah, I just need to write down an idea and get it out. And I had one of those macro moments when we were talking about it, because I'm like, that's the easiest freaking thing I could ever do.
Oh yeah,
and I'm like,
simple.
why don't I just do that? I have like yellow paged notebooks in every room of my house and my office space now. And it's almost terrifying to flip back through, and like you look at the past day and it's almost 2 pages of check boxes of things that got done in that period of time. Like,
it's a good feeling.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And then like sometimes, like when you get sick and you're getting back into the jive of things, and you look at the paper and you're like, how did I do that?
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff. And it's fun to look back on it. And I think it is very valuable to just get it off your chest sometimes. I have one notebook that is explicitly just for personal thoughts. And then
amazing.
And it helps me reflect. And I mean, I've been doing that for 6 years now. Again, I started in a darker place, and I knew I had to do something then, so that's when I first started it. But I've like picked it up again after like 9 months away, and started.
Yeah, and the wild thing is, like, sometimes I write stuff down and then I come back to it later and I look at that and I'm like, that's stupid, you know? But it's out of my head and I can just cross it off, and I'm like, I don't need to come back to this anymore. But just as much, I'll write something down. I'm like, you know what? This was a really good idea. Let's just make that phone call and get this done, because I think that, you know, there's something here. That's big. Something I've done lately, this just kind of ties in. I have, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 people that I'm pretty close with outside of my immediate family and, you know, your support system that you always go to, that have been past managers, coworkers that are high level that, you know, I left the job, they continued in that job, worked their way up. Now they're at a management level. So, you know, they're kind of on the same tier. Like we were at the same position, and then they chose to stay in that career. I left to do something different, and they've moved up, and they're at the point that I feel like I would have been at if I stayed at that. People that I respect, and I've been scheduling calls, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, FaceTime, whatever it is. Like, hey, you know, can I get on your calendar for 15 minutes, 20 minutes? They really appreciate that, and it helps me a ton. And there's a reason that those people are in your life or were in your life at that point, and that you gravitate to them and that you think about them. I think write those people down, like on a sticky note, somebody that might have an answer to a question or be able to shed some light on something that you're not sure on, and reach out to them, because that support from kind of that zoom out, right, that 40,000 foot view, they'll be able to help you with something, even if it's just checking in on, something that maybe you guys have, like, hey, have you been out golfing at all lately? Like some of these buddies I golf with. Oh yeah, whatever. And it just opens up your mind a little bit. And then they will, when you're on that call, the biggest thing is say, hey, this is a lot of fun. It's great catching up. When's the next time we can do this? And then write it down, put it in your phone. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, right? We have technology. We can talk to Kryn from what she's doing. She took time, for us to be able to help us out and tell her story a little bit. So I think that's super important. Reach out to people that are important to you, can help you build.
Yeah, I think finding therapy in your own ways.
Yeah, that's my therapy, is the people that have been a huge support system, and recognizing that and going back to them.
Yeah, I would say for me, when I was in 5th grade, my family was going to Disney, and I said to my mom, I was like, I'm not going to Disney. And she was like, yes, you are. It's Disney World. You're going. And I said, no, the plane's going to crash. I'm not going. And she was like, yeah, you're going to therapy. So that kind of started my journey. And like, I think for me, that was the smartest thing that she ever did. The principal at the school I was at, they ever did, was realizing I needed help and was okay with the fact that I needed help. And any like point in my life, like when I was in college, I think my junior year, both of my grandfathers passed away within like 5 months of each other. That was really tough. And so just knowing like when you're at those points, like for me, I know when I need to go to therapy. And when this event was happening with the studio, I went back to therapy because I'm like, that's what I need. But I think, having it part of like your day, and like trying to find other ways. Like dance is such a good therapy for me. If I am having a really shitty day, I go to the dance, even just teaching class, I'm always leaving in a better mood than I got there. And so finding things that like you can find those in your routine, in your normal day, I think that helps too.
Yeah.
It's hard to dance with a frown on your face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
unless the dance calls for frowning, then you kind of have to.
I regret that I didn't discover therapy sooner. I think I've only started going within the past 4 or 5 years. And I mean, I'll have to reach out to Paragon eventually, because every 2 years my therapist disappears, like in the wind.
They're probably at Paragon.
Yeah, I mean, probably. So I know we all have some meetings coming up soon, so I'm going to move into our final thoughts. I do want to point out an interesting connection where I've been, as we've listened to everyone talk, I do think there is an interesting connection where there might be a bit of a certain mindset that you need as an entrepreneur. And I think, and these are just assumptions, Kryn would probably know more than myself, but it seems like those individuals have a lot of similarities in how they approach life and some of the mental obstacles that they face. And I appreciate everyone for their candor and for sharing. And now we'll jump into last thoughts, and I'm keeping it vague. Go, Brittany. Last thoughts. Go ahead. Whatever you got.
Sure. Okay. So I would say, when you invited me to do this podcast, like driving here, I was getting nervous. Like I was feeling all the nerves. And this was actually good therapy too. So thank you, Brian, for putting this together. I think it's, just talking about how you're feeling and like, finding like-minded people, like the accelerator. I feel like anytime we left that Friday, I always felt so much better than when I got there. And just like being around people. I would say too, from teaching college and teaching Alfred State, some of the things that have stood out and like been a common thread is self-reflection. I taught a leadership class last year, and the good leaders, the great leaders, they find time to reflect. What went right? What went wrong? How can we change? How can we improve or keep doing? Reflection is a big part of that. Being open and honest communication. Communication is a huge thing, and just and transparency. We talked about that already, and those are my thoughts. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming down.
Yeah, I guess something that I've really been kind of honing in on lately is I truly think that, especially business owners, but especially business owners, if you think about yourself and your business and your life, like it all kind of meshes as one. And I think, separating that is good, but I think taking a look at the fact that I don't know that you think that you're the best dancer. Are you the best dancer ever? Probably not. There's better dancers. There's more talented
100%.
dancers. But I have a hard time thinking that there's many people out there, and you may be the very best at this. You run a dance studio, 2 different locations. You're a teacher. You're working with kids. And you also teach at the collegiate level, and you're finishing school. If you take that in a package as who you are the best probably in the world at balancing and doing what you're doing right now. And I think that's super important to step back and realize, like, you're doing a really good job just being able to get through every day what you're doing. Steve, same thing with you, right? Like, you're starting your business. I see a lot of this, and then I got that, and I got diabetes. You're probably the best right now at the stage that you're at, diabetic, entrepreneur, hopping on a podcast, taking time out of your day to do this, and you gave it your best, right?
Absolutely.
So that's all you can do. Like, every day I wake up and I want to be better. I want to be the best version of myself, no matter what that looks like, whether it's taking something out or adding something on. I think that's super important to really step back at. Brian, you got a million things you're juggling. Kryn, we've talked about this. I mean, you're starting another business while this one's ramping up, and you're opening up and revamping locations. And I see your posts, you're hiring people, you're doing everything. You are the best at that. You are the best version of yourself, and surround yourself with people who realize that and bring that out in people who don't recognize that. I think it's huge.
TJ, you need to be my hype man.
I am. So that's the big joke. The big joke growing up is that, like, I am the ultimate hype man, right? Like, even flashback high school, I was never a great basketball player because I'm 5'6" and white. You know, I was a really good athlete. I could run fast and try hard, but I wasn't that great of a basketball player. But I was a really good teammate, and people enjoyed me being out there because I was the hype man, right? Like, I understood the game really well. I just wasn't as physically talented as some other people. But yeah, I mean, I thought that I was the best teammate that I could possibly be given the situation. If I was 7 foot tall and I was the best hype man, then we might have a problem. You know, come on, you should be out there. But
oh yeah. No, I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why I invited you over here, because you're just delightful to talk to. You bring everyone up in the room, and it's just fantastic having you around.
Appreciate it.
And since we're kind of going in a quasi, I did not know there was a guy behind me. Totally railroaded where I was going with that. But yeah, so Steve, your insight, love it. Brittany, every time I've interacted with you, it just brings a smile to my life. And it's just delightful. So I'm very happy that I got all you guys in here. And then
Well, we don't get final words?
No, you don't.
Wow. Typical Brian.
No, I'm just going in the order of. I happen to be the third one in this order.
Okay, I see what we're doing now.
I'm not skipping y'all. And Kryn, you have been a fantastic mentor to myself as well, providing me with insight into my own business and my business doings that have fundamentally changed the way that I go about things and have dramatically improved my ability to see success in myself and in my daily lifestyle. And I really appreciate all of you and all of you for coming by. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kryn and then Steve.
Save the best for last. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So it sounds like, well, I wanted to just expand on what everyone has already said, because I think we've already hit a lot of great points, but I wanted to add even on, what TJ just said, like about Brittany and even about me. Thank you so much. Those were incredibly kind. And I wanted to add that we do it as women with extra barriers. So even today, I was like, Brian, can we please move our meetings around because it's my son's birthday and I want to pick him up from school. And I texted my wife, I'm like, can you please bring me some lunch and my favorite drink because I am slammed today. So that leads me to my next point is like allocating what you can is so important. so that you can function and do those higher level things that, as TJ said, nobody else can do. I can't replicate me, but I can have somebody go get me lunch, or I can have somebody go buy me a clipboard or something of that nature, so that I can stay really hyper focused on the things that only Kryn can do, or the things that TJ can do, or the things that only Brittany and Brian can do, because that's so important that we protect our time and really recognize what maybe unique barriers that we have that maybe our employees have, so that we can tear down those obstacles for other people who may have different needs than us, to ensure that everybody has that equal opportunity or that chance to really succeed and really be successful in business. And this was so fun. We have to do this again.
Yeah, this
I
is
agree.
Yeah, I'm actually, while I was thinking about it, I was like, I should really reach out to Bob and like,
When's episode 2?
see if we can't like set something up in the hub and get a
Bob
nice spot. I think that'd be really fun.
I think moderation is creating a healthy balance between work, rest, reflection, and play. I think that if you don't have that, you're going to have a really hard time trying to start your own business. I think that a lot of people who are trying to be entrepreneurs maybe deal with a lot of self-talk that is unhelpful. I think it helps to step back, take that bigger view, and realize that you're probably full of shit. And that you should just brush all the doubts to the side and just keep moving forward as far as it can take you. And you'll find out pretty quick, if you're going to make it or not. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. That is what it is. And, there's nothing like trying to strike out on your own and be able to kind of take control of your own destiny, your own life. So, I think it's incredibly valuable. I think keeping the people who are there for you to support you close is key. And I think that, believe in yourself, because, as human beings, we can literally do anything that we decide to set our minds to. We just have to set our minds to it and push through the doubt, because the doubt's going to be there. It always is.